Melissa from The Little For The Kid. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm a homeschooling mama of 3 kiddos, 2 7th graders and a kindergartner who is chronically ill and has a very long list of life-threatening food allergies, which is how this channel was born. Today, I am going to be doing my first Cook With Me video, and I polled my children to see what they thought their favorite thing was that I make that's safe, that they thought all of you would like, and it was a unanimous vote. They all voted for something that we call chicken squares, and I'd love to give somebody credit for this recipe, whoever originated it, but I don't know who that is, so I can't give credit to anybody except for maybe my mom, because she made this for me when I was a kid. It was always one of my favorite dinners. Of course, her version was not allergen free, so I have had to change a few things, and you'll see that in the video as we go along. You can always leave things just the same as the original recipe, which I'll be sure to share with you on the video. Or if you do have allergies and you need to make some substitutions, maybe my substitutions that work with our allergens will work with your allergens too. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you try it. If you try the recipe and you love it, or even if you hate it, let me know in the comments below, and I will also post the recipe in the description box. So here we go, chicken squares. So like I said, one of my kids' favorites is this recipe, and they always ask for it. The first thing you got to do is start with your chicken, and rotisserie chicken is really good with this, but if you don't have a rotisserie chicken, a really good method for cooking chicken and getting it flavorful and doing it quickly is to just boil it. And I use some water and some chicken broth, or you could do only water or only chicken broth. I do a mixture of both just to save some of my chicken broth, not to use as much. Season your water really well with salt and pepper, and then let it boil. And here's the cream cheese that I use in place of real cream cheese. I use the entire thing. If you are using real cream cheese because you don't have a dairy allergy to worry about, then I would start with half a block of real cream cheese versus the entire block of this coconut-based cream cheese. But I use the whole thing. I find that this doesn't stretch quite as far as the real thing does. And so I pop that into a bowl and let it kind of come to room temperature. It's much easier to mix in. Same thing with the real cream cheese. And so then once your chicken broth or your water or your combination of both is boiling, you can pop your chicken breasts in there. And depending on the size of your chicken breast, it usually takes about 10 minutes or so for your chicken to cook all the way through. So once your chicken's all done, you take it out, you chop it up. I like to chop it up. I have a Pampered Chef food chopper that I sometimes use to get it really finely chopped up. Today I just did more of a rough chop because I was kind of in a hurry. So you can chop it up as finely as you'd like. I find that the smaller it is, the better it mixes up with all the other ingredients. But anyway, so then I'm popping the chicken into the bowl that I had already put the cream cheese in to soften, and now I'm going to add some seasonings. Now this is where you can kind of go crazy. I just do usually garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, and some salt and pepper. But really, the possibilities are sort of endless at this stage of the recipe. Now you do want to make sure anything you put in at this stage, oops, I got a little piece of the paper, the paper that goes on top of your spices when you first open them. Anyway, so that's what I picked out of there. Anyway, the options are kind of limitless here. I've put spinach in at this stage before. I've put mushrooms in at this stage before. You could really add any herbs and spices that you particularly like. But generally, I just stick with onion powder, garlic powder, Italian seasoning, and salt and pepper along with the cream cheese. And then you just mix it up really, really well so that it's good and combined. I like to use a fork. I find that I can just kind of smush the cream cheese a little bit better and get it a little bit better mixed that way when I use a fork. But like I said, you can really put any flavors you want in at this point. Just make sure anything you put in is all the way cooked, because it is not going in the oven for very long, so you'll want everything to be cooked at this stage. Okay, so the next step involves crescent rolls. Now, obviously, crescent rolls have wheat. We are not wheat free. That is not one of our allergens. If you are, I'm not sure what to tell you. This is probably not a recipe for you. So what I do is I take the crescent rolls and I pinch that perforated edge together where you would normally tear it into triangles to make traditional crescent rolls. I pinch that together because during baking, if you don't do that, oftentimes it will split apart and you'll lose your filling. So you want to make sure that if you're using traditional crescent roll dough, that you pinch those perforated edges together to make 4 rectangles per can. Or you can also buy the crescent dough sheets, which is one big sheet, and take your pizza cutter or a knife and cut it into 4 rectangles, and you end up with the same thing. So anyway, once you have your rectangles ready, you spoon some of the chicken and cream cheese mixture into the center of the rectangle, and then you draw those 4 corners up into the middle on top of the mixture, and make sure you seal those edges really well. Like I said, sometimes in baking, if you don't seal them really well, they will come apart. So you sort of end up with an X on the top, and then if you flip it over, you kind of sort of a little bit have a square. I think that's where they got their name. Like I said, my mom made this for me. I don't know where she got the recipe, so somebody else named these, but I assume that's why they're called chicken squares. So I use 2 cans of crescent rolls or 2 cans of crescent roll dough sheets, which will give me 8 squares. That generally will fill up my family of 5. I do have a teenage boy and a husband that both eat quite a big dinner, but 8 squares will generally fill all 5 of us up pretty well. So that's what I do. Now, once you have all 8 squares ready, you want to melt some butter, whatever butter works for you. Obviously, I use a vegan butter because we're dairy free, but you could use the real thing too. And you brush some butter on the tops of each square. And then I have a little bowl where I mixed up some panko and some Italian seasoning, and I am going to sprinkle that on top of the buttered chicken squares once I'm done with the butter. And then I'm going to pop it in the oven following the crescent roll instructions. So 375 for about 12 minutes. And then they will be all ready. And there you have it. And tonight I served mine with wild rice and some broccoli, and this is a big hit at my house. Hope you enjoy.